Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Hollywood loves to show off its cute, talented kids, but behind the red carpet and the flashbulbs, there's a darker side nobody wants to talk about. Ever wonder what happens when child stars grow up and cross the line straight into a police lineup? How does someone go from family sitcoms and movie blockbusters to mugshots and courtrooms? Stick around, because some of these falls from grace are so wild, you'll wonder if anyone ever truly escapes their childhood fame. Ryan Grantham. If you thought child stars could only fall so far, Ryan Grantham's story will make you think again. Known to millions as the sweet-faced kid from Diary of a Wimpy Kid in Riverdale, Grantham went from the Canadian screen to international headlines for reasons no parent, fan, or agent could have ever predicted. In March 2020, Grantham shot and killed his own mother. Not in a fit of rage, not by accident, but by what he called an act of mercy. Then it got even more chilling. He loaded his car with weapons and Molotov cocktails and, according to police reports, set off with plans to target government officials, including the Canadian Prime Minister or even his own university. But instead of committing any more violence, Grantham turned himself in. Psychiatric evaluations painted a picture of a young man spiraling with untreated mood disorders, alcohol issues, and substance abuse. The courtroom drama that followed didn't just ruin his reputation, it ended his freedom. In September 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison. His tragic downfall is a brutal reminder that childhood fame, mental health struggles, and real-world violence can collide in ways nobody expects. No other child star's fall from grace has left quite this deep a scar on the industry. Ricardo Medina Jr. Ricardo Medina Jr. wore a Power Ranger suit and saved the day on screen. Off-screen, he made headlines for a crime that's as bizarre as it is brutal. In 2002, Medina suited up as Cole Evans, the Red Lion Ranger in Power Rangers Wild Force, living every 90s kid's fantasy. But in 2015, his real-life script took a violent twist. After a heated argument with his roommate, things went from tense to terrifying. Medina grabbed a sword, the kind you'd expect a Power Ranger to wield, and stabbed his roommate after a door was kicked down during the fight. Medina claimed self-defense, but the court wasn't buying the superhero angle. He eventually pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and landed a 6-year prison sentence. The trial became a media circus, with his roommate's father openly wishing for Medina's reputation to be completely and permanently destroyed. Fans who once saw him as a hero were left stunned. No redemption arc, no second chances, just a cautionary tale of how fantasy and reality can collide with deadly consequences. When it comes to Medina, the only thing more dramatic than his on-screen battles was the real one that put him behind bars: Drake Bell. Once, Drake Bell was Nickelodeon royalty. The star of Drake and Josh, he was the heartthrob that every kid wanted to hang out with and every parent trusted. But fame has a nasty way of testing people, and Bell's Golden Boy era cracked in public. His first run-in with the law was a DUI in 2010, but things escalated. By 2016, he was a second-time offender and spent a night behind bars, with a 4-day sentence and 4 years probation. The real shock came in 2021. Bell was hit with charges that rattled his fan base and turned his career upside down: endangerment of a minor, stemming from inappropriate messages and contact with a girl underage. Though he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to probation and community service, the details shook anyone who grew up watching him. Bell tried to do damage control, releasing an Instagram video to defend his actions, but the stain on his reputation stuck. Once America's go-to funny guy, Drake Bell now sits in the Hall of Fame for stars whose real lives crashed their careers and proved that TV charm can't save you from real-world consequences. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf's journey from Disney's Even Stevens to box office stardom was wild enough, but his rap sheet is even longer than his IMDb page. Shia's troubles started early. He was arrested for theft before he even hit double digits. By 2007, after trying to stab a neighbor, he got his first real taste of jail time. The next few years read like a criminal greatest hits: DUIs, bar fights, and a notorious moment in 2014 where he was dragged out of a Broadway show after interrupting the performance and slapping an actor. And Shia never took his foot off the gas. There were more public meltdowns, including drunken street rants, a run-in with the law over jaywalking, and a series of disturbing allegations from former partners. Even as he acknowledged his destructive behavior, his career kept bouncing back, until the lawsuits and public scandals piled up higher than his box office receipts. Shia's saga is proof that even the most talented kids in Hollywood can't outrun their own worst impulses forever. For LaBeouf, the off-screen drama has become the main event, and no one knows what's coming next. Robert Blake. Robert Blake was Hollywood royalty before he could even ride a bike. As a child, he starred in Little Rascals and earned critical acclaim in films like In Cold Blood. But it's his real-life role in one of the most notorious murder cases in Hollywood history that cemented his legacy for all the wrong reasons. In 2001, after a dinner out, Blake's wife Bonnie Lee Bakley was found shot in his car. The murder weapon? Dumped in a dumpster nearby. The investigation? A tabloid's dream and a detective's nightmare. Blake spent months behind bars awaiting trial, accused of orchestrating his wife's murder. Two stuntmen claimed he tried to hire them as hitmen, but their testimony fizzled in court. In a dramatic twist, Blake was acquitted of all criminal charges. But the story didn't end there. Bakley's family sued him in civil court and won, with a judgment that Blake was liable for her death and owed $30 million. Hollywood loves a comeback, but Blake's story is a cautionary epic. He went from America's Little Rascal to a name forever tied to crime and courtroom drama. Proof that sometimes the real-life plot twists are darker than anything ever filmed. Lindsay Lohan. Few child stars have ridden the Hollywood roller coaster quite like Lindsay Lohan. She burst onto the scene with The Parent Trap and quickly became the queen of the teen movie era. Freaky Friday, Mean Girls, she was everywhere. But as Lohan's fame soared, her private life started to spin out. The world watched her transition from beloved Disney darling to tabloid magnet, with each headline getting darker. Her criminal saga began in 2007 with a drunk driving charge that made late-night hosts cackle and gossip rags salivate. But this was just the opening act. Within months, she was arrested again, serving a day in jail and earning probation and community service. The next few years turned into a courtroom carousel. Missed counseling, skipping court, violating probation, all while paparazzi tracked her every move. In 2010, she was sentenced to 90 days behind bars for missing counseling sessions, though she ultimately served less than 2 weeks. As if that wasn't enough, Lohan was busted for stealing a pricey necklace in 2011. Her time in custody? 5 hours before she posted bail. Even a nightclub assault charge in 2012 landed her only a brief stint in police custody. Through it all, her Hollywood career flickered, but never quite burned out. Lohan's story is a wild ride, one that shows how easy it is for a childhood icon to lose the plot when fame, fortune, and freedom collide. Now, with every attempted comeback, there's always that shadow, proof that even America's favorite teen queen couldn't outrun her own chaos. Orlando Brown. Remember Eddie Thomas from That's So Raven? Orlando Brown was the comic sidekick every kid loved, but behind the jokes, his real life became a cautionary tale about child stardom gone sideways. After the Disney Channel spotlight faded, Brown's troubles multiplied. His first major brush with the law came in 2016 when a domestic dispute with his girlfriend in a police parking lot led to charges of battery and drug possession. The kicker? Cops found meth on him during the arrest. It didn't end there. In 2018, Brown was arrested multiple times for burglary, drug possession, and more domestic disturbances. Each time, the mugshots got a little more infamous and the headlines a little sadder. At one point, he served 23 days for his charges, and his mental health struggles became public knowledge after a notorious appearance on Dr. Phil. Brown's downward spiral was so public that even his attempts at recovery were watched by millions. For a brief moment, it looked like he'd turned things around, embracing sobriety and speaking openly about his past. But the damage was done. Orlando Brown's journey from sitcom staple to serial headline was complete. His story is a warning shot for young stars everywhere. Even the funniest kids in the business can crash hard when the laughter fades and the spotlight moves on. Jeremy Jackson. For a generation, Jeremy Jackson was Hobie Buchanan, the tanned and tousled kid racing down the Baywatch beach. But behind the California sunshine was a battle with addiction that ultimately sent his life into a tailspin. Jackson's drug use began early: weed, coke, ecstasy, meth, the works. By 19, he was already serving jail time for drug possession. That was just the start. Fast forward to 2015, and Jackson found himself in the headlines again for burglary and stabbing a man. The story was almost cinematic. Jackson claimed he was the victim of back-to-back burglaries and acted in self-defense, but the court had other ideas. While he avoided charges for the first stabbing, a second incident where he stabbed a woman during a failed car theft landed him 270 days in jail and 5 years of probation. Fans who grew up watching him rescue drowning tourists could barely believe it. The squeaky clean lifeguard image was officially toast. The difference between his on-screen heroics and off-screen chaos was stark, and a reminder that the tides in Hollywood can change in an instant. For Jeremy Jackson, the fall from TV golden boy to headline regular was dramatic, messy, and painfully public. Jake Lloyd. Jake Lloyd's face is forever etched in movie history as young Anakin Skywalker, the little boy with big destiny in The Phantom Menace. But the adoration quickly curdled into backlash, and by the time he was a teenager, Lloyd had quit acting altogether, soured by relentless bullying from fans and the press. What happened next was a slow-motion crash. By his 20s, Lloyd was struggling with mental health and legal issues. In 2015, he hit rock bottom with a high-speed police chase that ended with 4 criminal charges. He spent nearly a year in jail, unable to make bond, and was eventually moved to a psychiatric facility after his mother revealed he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. For a while, Lloyd was Hollywood's cautionary tale, another kid who couldn't handle the pressure. But dig deeper, and it's hard not to see him as a casualty of a system that eats its young. The Star Wars universe may have promised hope and redemption, but for Jake Lloyd, the reality was far harsher, full of public scorn and personal pain. The world that watched him rise as a chosen one also watched as he stumbled, proving not even the Force can save you from Hollywood's dark side. Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes was once the undisputed queen of Nickelodeon, a comic force with her own show and a fast track to movie stardom. But if anyone ever seemed destined for a Hollywood happily ever after, her journey turned out to be anything but. Bynes' public unraveling began in 2012 with a DUI arrest, then hit-and-run charges. The headlines were relentless: car accidents, reckless driving, and bizarre social media rants. Things spiraled in 2013 when she was caught with drug paraphernalia and in a moment straight out of a bad sitcom chucked the evidence out her apartment window as police arrived. She spent the night in central booking and soon after was placed under psychiatric hold. For the next several years, Amanda's life was under a conservatorship, with her parents making her legal and medical decisions. Through it all, fans watched in shock and heartbreak as Bynes' story became a symbol of how quickly the industry can chew up its brightest stars. But there's a twist. In recent years, Amanda started piecing her life back together, earning a degree and speaking openly about her recovery. Still, her legacy is forever marked by a Hollywood system that made her, broke her, and left her to clean up the mess in public view. Edward Furlong. Edward Furlong's big break came in the blockbuster Terminator 2, Judgment Day. He played John Connor, the scrappy, street-smart teen who would one day save humanity. For a minute, it looked like Furlong might conquer Hollywood, but fame came at a price. The cameras eventually stopped rolling, and what followed was a messy, real-life sequel filled with addiction, arrests, and regret. Furlong's struggles started with a heroin overdose in 2001, and it didn't take long for his mugshot to hit the tabloids. In 2004, he was picked up for public intoxication after causing a scene at a grocery store. But that was just the warm-up. He racked up domestic violence charges, time in psychiatric facilities, and repeat violations of restraining orders. At one point, Furlong was sentenced to 6 months in jail for breaking probation and violating a restraining order. It wasn't just one incident. It was a long, painful spiral that stretched on for years. Every time fans hoped for a comeback, maybe a surprise return to the Terminator franchise, another headline would drop, another fight, another arrest, another missed shot at redemption. Edward Furlong's story isn't just about a child star who lost his way. It's about the brutal power of addiction and the relentless pressure cooker of early fame. He was the kid who played humanity's last hope, but in the end, nobody could save him from his own demons. Macaulay Culkin. For millions, Macaulay Culkin will always be that mischievous kid from Home Alone. He was the highest-paid child actor of his era and an international icon before hitting puberty. But while Kevin McAllister was outsmarting burglars on screen, Culkin faced a different kind of danger in real life, one he couldn't trap or outwit. As the spotlight faded, Culkin's private battles became painfully public. The turning point came in 2004 when he was arrested for possession of marijuana and prescription drugs. Suddenly, the boy who booby-trapped his house was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Although Culkin didn't serve jail time, his name became forever linked to that iconic mugshot, proof that even the most beloved child star could get caught in Hollywood's undertow. But Culkin's story is more complex than a single bad night. Years of family drama, a toxic media circus, and constant speculation about his health took their toll. While he's managed to stage a quirky, low-key comeback in recent years, his run-in with the law remains a stark reminder. Hollywood's golden kids aren't immune to real-world problems. Sometimes, surviving the industry's worst traps is harder than surviving the wet bandits. Jodie Sweetin. Jodie Sweetin brought life and laughter to Full House as Stephanie Tanner, winning over viewers with her signature catchphrase and endless charm. But behind the scenes, her story took a detour into darkness, addiction, and a string of legal troubles. The transition from child star to adult proved rocky, especially once the cameras stopped rolling. After Full House, Sweetin's struggles with alcohol and drugs escalated quickly. She was arrested for DUI and drug possession, sending shockwaves through her fan base. Each mugshot chipped away at the wholesome image everyone remembered from TV. For years, Sweetin bounced in and out of rehab, fighting to reclaim her life from a relentless cycle of relapse and legal headaches. While Jodie eventually found her way back to sobriety and advocacy, her criminal past remains a powerful warning about the dangers lurking behind childhood fame. Her journey from America's sweetheart to tabloid regular, and then, against the odds, to recovery, proves that even the brightest stars can lose their way. But it also reminds us that, with enough grit, some can fight their way back, one day at a time. Aaron Carter. Aaron Carter started out as the kid brother of a Backstreet Boy and quickly blazed his own trail as a pop star, Nickelodeon regular, and tween idol. But fame hit fast, and so did the fallout. As he transitioned into adulthood, Carter's life became a train wreck in slow motion, each year bringing new chaos, new headlines, and new mugshots. His rap sheet reads like a wild script: multiple DUIs, drug possession, bar brawls, and accusations of domestic violence. His arrests often came with dramatic twists, from bizarre Twitter rants to on-camera meltdowns. The public watched in fascination and horror as Carter's once shiny image was chipped away by scandal after scandal. Even as he tried to clean up his act and relaunch his music career, Aaron couldn't outrun his past. The world saw a kid who got too much, too soon, and never learned to handle the aftermath. Carter's life is a cautionary tale. In the world of child stardom, the crash can be brutal, and the road back is steeper than anyone imagines. Taran Noah Smith. Taran Noah Smith grew up on the set of Home Improvement, cracking jokes and charming America as the youngest Taylor kid. But when the cameras stopped rolling, Smith rebelled against his on-screen image, and the results were messy. As a young adult, he made headlines for a strange string of legal issues, most notably a 2012 arrest for DUI and marijuana possession. Smith's journey from sitcom cutie to criminal defendant felt almost scripted for tabloids. His troubles with the law weren't violent or headline-grabbing, but they were enough to shatter the illusion of the perfect child star. Instead of college and more acting gigs, he ended up in courtrooms, facing the fallout of choices made far away from the sitcom's laugh track. Taran's story is less about dramatic downfall and more about what happens when Hollywood's child stars have to find their way in the real world, with no script, no safety net, and no applause. He left acting behind, but the legacy of his early fame and his adult run-ins with the law followed him. It's proof that sometimes the quietest crashes are the hardest to recover from. Dustin Diamond. Dustin Diamond was Screech, saved by the Bell's lovable, geeky oddball who always seemed to mean well, no matter how much chaos he caused. But after the bell rang for the last time, Diamond's real life was a lot less sitcom and a lot more courtroom drama. His adult years became a headline buffet. bar fights, odd gigs, and eventually, a crime that shocked even his harshest critics. In 2014, Diamond was arrested after a Christmas night altercation in a Wisconsin bar spiraled out of control. The fight ended with Diamond pulling out a pocket knife and stabbing a man. He claimed self-defense, but the jury wasn't entirely convinced. The result? A 4-month jail sentence for carrying a concealed weapon and disorderly conduct. It wasn't his first brush with trouble. His name kept popping up in tabloids for lawsuits and other legal tangles. Diamond's later years were marked by attempts at redemption and a battle with cancer that ultimately took his life. But his stint behind bars forever changed how fans saw him. The jump from TV nerd to real-life felon proved once again that in Hollywood, the real world is a lot messier than any Saturday morning show. Lilo Brancato Jr. came up fast, landing a breakout role in A Bronx Tale and later showing up on The Sopranos. But while his on-screen characters flirted with trouble, his off-screen story crossed the line. Brancato's downward spiral began with addiction, leading to a series of bad decisions that climaxed in a tragedy no one could script. In 2005, Brancato and an accomplice broke into a home looking for drugs. The burglary ended in disaster when a police officer was shot and killed. Though Brancato wasn't the shooter, he was convicted of attempted burglary and served 8 years in prison. The case became a media sensation. Hollywood bad boy, cop's death, addiction, and wasted promise all rolled into one. When Brancato got out, he spoke about his regrets and the damage done, but nothing could erase the stain left by that night. His story is a harsh lesson in how fast things can go wrong when fame, addiction, and bad company mix. For fans who loved him as a streetwise kid with a heart of gold, his real-life journey became a somber reminder that not every actor's story ends in applause. Shaun Weiss. Mighty Ducks fans remember Shaun Weiss as the wisecracking Goldberg, goalie extraordinaire and comic relief. Off-screen, though, Weiss's life was anything but a feel-good sports movie. As an adult, he battled addiction so severe that it landed him repeatedly behind bars and left fans shocked by his dramatic transformation. Weiss's troubles kicked off with petty theft and drug possession, but it was his 2020 arrest for residential burglary that really made headlines. Mugshots went viral, with fans barely recognizing the once chubby kid from their childhood. His battle with meth addiction left him physically and mentally devastated, bouncing between jail cells and rehab beds. But Weiss's story isn't just about the fall. It's about the brutal reality that sometimes comes with child stardom. After years of struggle, there are signs of hope, sobriety, dental reconstruction, and small steps back toward a normal life. Still, for a whole generation, seeing Goldberg on a mugshot was the punch to the gut nobody saw coming. The Mighty Ducks may have taught us about comebacks, but real life is a lot tougher than the movies. Brian Bonsall. Brian Bonsall was the adorable Andy Keaton on Family Ties, melting hearts and landing movie roles before he could even drive. But Bonsall's adult life went from wholesome to troubled at lightning speed. After leaving acting, he racked up arrests for assault, domestic violence, and DUI, a trifecta of legal chaos that kept his name in the news for all the wrong reasons. In one notorious incident, Bonsall was arrested for attacking a friend with a bar stool. Another time, it was an ex-girlfriend who called the cops after a violent altercation. Sprinkle in a few DUI charges, and you have the recipe for a child star's complete image overhaul. Bonsall did stints in jail, rehab, and probation, each attempt at recovery followed by another headline. These days, Bonsall is trying to make music and keep a low profile, but his journey is a classic example of how early success doesn't guarantee a smooth ride. For anyone who grew up watching Family Ties, his transformation from precocious kid to criminal defendant is a tough pill to swallow. Sometimes Hollywood's safest bets turn out to be its wildest cards. Mitchell Musso. Mitchell Musso was the goofy, lovable best friend on Hannah Montana, lighting up Disney Channel and living the dream of millions of young fans. But once the cameras stopped rolling, Musso's adult choices put his squeaky clean image through the ringer. His biggest misstep came in 2011, when he was arrested for driving under the influence. It was a shocker for anyone who'd ever watched him as the innocent sidekick. Musso's arrest was the sort of headline Disney tries desperately to avoid. The details were classic celebrity fare, late-night traffic stop, field sobriety test, and a mugshot splashed across the internet. Though the incident didn't result in jail time, it put the brake on his career and changed how fans saw him. He went from Disney's safe bet to another cautionary tale of childhood fame gone sideways. Mitchell Musso's journey from sitcom staple to the wrong side of the law is a reminder. Even those who seem to have it all can make one choice that changes everything. In Hollywood, the distance between the Walk of Fame and a police lineup can be shockingly short. Jamie Foxworth. Jamie Foxworth was the youngest Winslow on Family Matters, known for her innocent smile and scene-stealing lines. But Hollywood can be a rough neighborhood for child stars, and Jamie's path turned turbulent after her early success. As the show's spotlight faded, she struggled with family drama and career letdowns that sent her into a tailspin. Her troubles became public in her 20s, with run-ins involving DUI and drug possession charges. It wasn't just the legal issues, the weight of childhood fame, family money problems, and a search for identity away from TV all piled up. Each new headline seemed to mark another rough chapter as Foxworth tried, stumbled, and tried again to reclaim some control over her story. Foxworth's journey is a lesson in how fragile Hollywood success can be, especially for kids who grow up in its grip. Despite her battles with the law and addiction, she's spoken honestly about her setbacks and her fight for recovery. For those who remember her as the sweet kid next door, her struggles serve as a wake-up call. Not every sitcom ending is happily ever after. Sometimes, the real drama comes long after the credits roll. Anissa Jones. Anissa Jones captured hearts in the 1960s as Buffy on Family Affair, a little girl with a big bow and even bigger personality. But her life off-screen was marked by pain, instability, and a world that seemed to have no patience for child stars growing up. After her show ended, Jones found herself lost, cut off from the support and structure she'd known as a kid. By her late teens, Anissa had been arrested for drug possession, a red flag for a life spinning dangerously out of control. Friends and family watched in despair as she drifted between bad decisions and bad company. Her legal trouble was an early warning that the safety net of childhood fame had disappeared and there was nobody to catch her. Tragically, Anissa Jones's story didn't get a chance at redemption. Her downward spiral ended in heartbreak, but her brief run-ins with the law remain a somber reminder of how quickly the industry's brightest lights can burn out. The lesson? Hollywood rarely sticks around to help its youngest stars when the curtain falls. Leif Garrett. Leif Garrett was America's teen idol in the 1970s, with posters on every bedroom wall and a pop career that screamed success. But Leif's offstage life was rockier than any of his radio hits. Drugs and reckless decisions became part of his daily routine. He collected arrests like trading cards, heroin possession, theft, bar fights, and more. Garrett's criminal record isn't just a list of minor mistakes. One of the darkest chapters came after a car accident in the late 70s that left his best friend paralyzed. Leif was under the influence and paid the price, both in court and in the public eye. The guilt and the pressure only made his spiral faster. By the 1990s and 2000s, Garrett was a regular in courtrooms and rehab, making headlines for everything but his music. His public statements about his mistakes became as famous as his songs. For fans, Leif Garrett became a living warning label. The faster you rise in Hollywood, the harder you can fall. Even teen idols aren't immune to real-life consequences. Nicholas Brendon. Buffy the Vampire Slayer's Xander Harris was the nerdy hero you rooted for, but actor Nicholas Brendon's real life turned far darker. After the series wrapped, Brendon's battles with addiction led to a string of run-ins with the law. Arrests for domestic violence, vandalism, grand theft, and prescription drug fraud kept him in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Brendon's legal troubles usually played out the same way: a meltdown in public, police intervention, and a somber mugshot splashed across the media. Each arrest seemed to deepen the cycle, as personal struggles and professional setbacks intertwined. Attempts at comeback were overshadowed by another bad night, another headline, another disappointment. Brendon's story is the definition of a cautionary tale for child stars and their fans. Hollywood can make you a legend, but it can also chew you up and spit you out. For everyone who cheered for Xander, Seeing Brendan's name attached to so much trouble was a punch to the gut, a reminder that fame is no shield against real-world problems. Skylar Delian had a fleeting moment in the spotlight as a child, with a small role on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but nothing in the scripts could prepare anyone for the real-life horror show that would follow. Delian's story is one of Hollywood's darkest. As an adult, he masterminded a gruesome crime that shocked even the most jaded true crime fans. In 2004, Delian, along with accomplices, posed as a couple interested in buying a yacht from Tom and Jackie Hawks. The meeting ended in terror. The Hawks were tied to an anchor and thrown overboard, alive. The case quickly drew headlines for its chilling details and DeLeon's eerie transformation from kid actor to ruthless criminal. Investigators painted a picture of financial desperation and calculated violence. The trial was the stuff of tabloid nightmares, with testimonies revealing a web of lies, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. In 2009, Delian was sentenced to death for the crime. The case remains one of the most notorious involving a former child star. Skylar Delian's story isn't about bad choices or tabloid slip-ups. It's a full-blown Hollywood horror that proves sometimes real life is far stranger and darker than anything ever filmed. For those who think child actors are immune to life's worst twists, Delian's downfall is a chilling wake-up call. So, what's the real Hollywood crime here? The wild missteps of these child stars, or the system that set them up for disaster? Maybe it's both. Fame might look like a fairy tale, but behind every red carpet smile, there's a story you don't see, and sometimes it ends in a mugshot. Which downfall shocked you the most, and who do you think could have turned it all around? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more untold Hollywood truths, and remember, in this business, growing up is the toughest role of all.